What's up YouTube and welcome to a new video. Now, like many other car markets, the mid-engine Ferrari market has been on a roll. Prices are up significantly, but it seems to be so that market dynamics changed a lot during the last half year. We can namely see that especially the older models are gaining in popularity compared to the newer models. In this video I will show you exactly what this means for the price trends of the 360, F430, 458 and 488. But before we dive into the details of those price trends, let's first have a look at the mid-engine Ferrari market. Over here we have the US market of December. From left to right we have the F355, the 360, the F430, the 458, the 488, the F8 and the SF90. Now the first thing what you might notice over here are these outliers. They are the special cars like the Pistas and the Scuderias. They go for a significant premium and you can see that they are typically priced the same as a base version car which is 2 generations newer. A 360 Challenge Stradale or a F430 Scuderia is priced in line with a 458 or even a 488 base model. You can also see that the cars become cheaper if we move from the right hand side to the left hand side of the graph. Yet, this effect seems to disappear when we arrive at the F355. If we ignore the special models, then we can see that the F355 and 360 both have a median price of $100,000. The F430 on the other hand has a median price of $144,000, hereby requiring a premium of $44,000 over the 360. The 458 in turn is with $240,000, $96,000 more expensive than a F430. And the 488 requires a premium of $78,000. And all of this signals how popular the 458 is. The premium to the F530 is relatively large, while the premium to the 488 is quite small. Normally you see that the premium increases when you move from the older to the newer cars. And now that we are up to date on today's price levels, let's have a look at the price developments. We will start with the 360 and then work our way up to the 488. At the end of the video we will then conclude with some key insights. Over here we have the price trend for the 360 market between October 2019 and December 2021, and this excludes the Challenge Stradales. And initially prices moved quite slow. Between October 2019 and May 2021, prices only increased by 6%. Now don't get me wrong, by itself that's wonderful, especially if you own a 360, but compared to the price frenzy what we see in other market segments, it's a bit low. If you are a regular viewer of the channel, then you know that for example 996 prices went through the roof. However, in the last 7 months dynamics changed, as prices increased with 18% from $90,000 to $106,000. And that's a very large increase for such a short time period. This increase might follow from a drop in supply. In October 2019 there were 76 cars for sale, in May 2021 only 40, and the current market supply sits at 45 cars. Now out of these 45 cars, the majority are Spiders. The coupes did then also increase a bit more than the Spiders in the most recent period, but over the complete period the price increase is the same as it sits at 27%. Now another key thing to consider over here is of course the transmission type. Manual 360s come with this beautiful gated shifter and they do then also demand a significant premium. If we split the graph by transmission type, we can see that there are significant differences between the manual and automatic markets. The manuals seem to move independently from the automatics. Prices increased by 45% between October 2019 and May 2021, but now remain stable as they didn't move in the last 6 months. And this is something which we see over and over again, that the most popular cars of a certain model start to increase first and that the less popular variants follow at a later point. And when they follow, they also increase typically with a lower rate. Now it would be cool to also see the price trend for the Challenge Stradale, but unfortunately I don't have any historical data for that. I will however include it from now on, so you can expect to see that in the next 360 market update. So let's do a little summary about what we just saw before we move on to the F430 market. We saw that the 360 price trend awakened and values finally started to go up significantly. The 360 was for a long time a bit forgotten. That seemed to have changed now. Moreover, and this is something which we didn't discuss yet, the price trend is also visible in the auction results from Bring a Trailer. So advertised prices and auction results are clearly aligned here. And with that it's time to move on to the F430 market. But before we do so, if you like this video, please support the channel by clicking on the like button down below. Thank you. You can also follow me on Instagram. It's @4wheeltrader. I don't post so many photos over there as I mainly publish car market updates in my stories. Now then, the F430 market. Over here we have the price development for the standard models between February 2020 and December 2021. Now just as we saw in the 360 market, prices initially lagged to the market trend. In the beginning of 2022 we even saw a small price decrease. Yet, prices shot up by 22% in the last 10 months. And that's a significant increase after a period with relatively stable prices. Moreover, this means that compared to February 2020, prices are up by 27%. Supply development is also similar to the 360 market. It decreased from 111 to 93 to 55 cars, and now stabilized as it sits at 57 cars. Now what's different in the F430 market compared to the 360 market is the price development for the Spyders and the Coupes. We can see that Coupes were initially undervalued by quite a bit, as the Spyder had a premium of $20,000. During last year this premium decreased by 50%, as you can see that the Coupes increased a lot more between May 2020 and February 2021. Moreover, they seem to be able to maintain this price level. Now there are two more splits to consider here. The one between the automatic and the manuals, and the split between the base models and the Scuderias. However, especially when it comes to the manual market, the price trend is not very informative. There are only a handful of cars for sale at a given point, and this makes it difficult to rely on aggregate numbers. The same goes for the Scuderias, but to a lesser extent. If we look at the price trend split by roof, then we can see that the Coupes dipped in the beginning of 2020, then stabilized and saw an increase of 18% during the last 10 months. And this pattern is quite similar to what we saw in the standard market. Likewise, also supply decreased drastically. It dropped from 2 times 17 cars to 9 and to 7 cars. Now to me this price development over here was a bit unexpected. With all this talk about naturally aspirated engines, I expected a larger increase. Now what's also interesting over here is that this price increase is mainly driven by the cars with a mileage higher than 13,000 miles. Cars with a lower mileage saw a stable price development. Now finally, you can also see that there are no data points available for the Spyders in December. And this is because there were no cars for sale which met the data quality requirements. So, to sum it up, the price trend in the F430 market is quite similar to what we saw in the 360 market. Prices were stable for a long time, but saw an upwards acceleration during last year. And that's by the way also what we can see in the auction results from Bring a Trailer. And with that, let's move on to a car which some call the pinnacle, the 458. Over here we have the price trend for the standard models between April 2020 and December 2021. And you can see immediately that this picture looks different than what we had in the 360 and F430 market. Prices increased by 22% between April 2020 and June 2021. Yet, more recently, there is a slight flattening in the trend as prices only increased by 6% in the last 6 months. Also, the supply trend is different in this market. It first dropped from 160 to 78 cars, similar to the 360 and F430 market. Yet, we can see a supply increase in the last 6 months, as there are currently 106 cars for sale. Now if we zoom in a bit to the price increase during the last 6 months, then we can see that this originates from the Spyder market. Over here we have the split between the two roof types, and this shows that Spyders increased by 9% in the last 6 months versus 5% for the Coupes. It's difficult to say what's the reason for this, and it might be pure chance that one increased more than the other. You can see that they developed more or less the same before, and I can't really come up with a reason as to why they would start to diverge now. But please let me know your comments down below in the comment section. Alright, but what about the Speciale market then? Well, things are certainly moving over there. Over here we have the price development for the Coupes and the Apertas, and this shows that prices were stable for a long time, but then shot up during the last 6 months. Coupes went up with 23% and Apertas with 35%. And that's huge. Supply did then also decrease drastically over the shown time period. For the Coupes it dropped from 21 to 5 cars and for the Apertas from 12 to 5 cars. And this also means that we need to be a bit careful with interpreting these most recent data points. Data is simply limited. Yet, to our advantage, mileages didn't change so much during the last 2 timestamps. I also checked the depreciation per 1000 miles curves, and these show a relatively clean shift upwards for all of the mileages. So, to sum it up, the 458 price trend looks different than the one for the 360 and the F430. It shows a much more severe increase in the beginning of 2020 and a smaller increase in the last 6 months. And this is with exception of the Speciales. These saw a large increase in the last 6 months. And that brings us to the last car of today, the 458, a car which is frequently criticized for its turbocharged engine. But is this reflected in the price trend? Well, to some extent, but not as much as you might expect. Over here we have the price development excluding the Pistas between July 2020 and December 2021. And you can see that the shape of the price trend looks similar to the one of the 458. Yet, the total price increase is less severe. Prices increased with 18% since July 2020 and 8% in the last 6 months. So this means that during the last few months, prices increased more than in the 458 market. Remember that prices over there went up with 6%. And that's interesting, right? Does this mean that people finally start to realize that the 488 is a better car? Or are 458 prices simply close to their price ceiling as they increased more than 488 prices during 2020? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Supply, by the way, also shows a similar pattern as what we saw on the 458 market. It first decreased from 227 cars to 128 cars and now increased to 189 cars. Now what's also noteworthy over here is that it are again the spiders which are driving the most recent price increase. If we split the graph by roof type, then we can see that the trend for the coupe is flattening a bit as prices only went up by 4%, while it's accelerating for the spiders. These saw an increase of 7%. And also this is similar to what we saw in the 458 market. So in that sense there are many similarities between the two when it comes to market dynamics. At least more similarities than I initially expected, as the cars themselves are after all quite different. So what about the Pistas then? Let's have a look because there are quite some large changes. Over here you can see their price development during the last 6 months. You can see that the price change in the coupe market is almost identical to the 458 Speciale coupe market. Prices increased by 20%. Supply is however quite high for such a niche vehicle. It decreased from 37 to 24 cars. And we can't say the same thing for the Spider market. Prices over there only increased by 4% while supply decreased from 12 to 10 cars. So we saw a lot of data, and that means that it's time to put all of this together and to deduce some key insights about the price dynamics. I always try to present these videos in a structured way, but it can be difficult to keep track of things. The way I see it, we can clearly distinguish the 360 and F430 market from the 458 and 488 market. Moreover, we can see that during the last 6 months the 360 and F430 markets gained in popularity. They saw a larger increase than the 458 and 488 market. These markets increased a lot during 2020 and the first half of 2021. If we stack them all together, this becomes evident. Over here we have now the price trends for the 360, F430, 458 and 488. And this shows first of all that the price trends of the 360 and F430 are very similar. They are more or less flat till the beginning of 2021 and then start to increase. Also the supply patterns in these two markets look almost identical. Supply decreased sharply till 2021, after which it stabilized. And this further reinforces the similarities between the two markets. Contrasting to this, we have the 458 and 488 market. In those markets we can already see a large price increase during 2020. These increases continue into 2021 but at a lower pace than before. Also supply is similar. Both markets saw a large supply drop between 2020 and 2021. Yet, more recently, both also saw a strong supply increase. And if we look at the numbers, we can confirm all of this. In the last 6 to 7 months we saw an 8% increase in the 488 market, 6% in the 458 market and 13% in the F430 market and 18% in the 360 market. So in the short term the older cars have an advantage. Yet in the medium term, so between July 2020 and now, things are pretty equal with exception for the 488. Prices increased with 18% in that market, while this is 26% in the 458 and F430 market and 32% in the 360 market. So to sum it up, the F430 and 360 seem to be the most popular at the moment, but we saw that this hasn't always been the case, as it were the 458 and 488 which started to increase first. Going forward, I wouldn't be surprised to see that the two older cars continue to increase more than the newer cars. And that's in the near term future. Supply is low in these markets and they have momentum. When it comes to the special models we can't say the same. In fact, momentum might even be with the newer cars. Pista coupes and Speciales increased significantly in the last 6 months. We can see the same rate in the Scuderia market, but it took the market much longer to realize that increase. Now all in all there are a lot of things happening in the mid-engine Ferrari market. 360 and F430 values finally broke loose. The 488 is a bit lagging behind and the 458 remains to be immensely popular. It will then also be interesting to follow how this all pans out. And with that we arrived at the end of this video. Now if you enjoy this data-driven way of analyzing car markets, but would have liked to see the analysis for a different car, let me know down below in the comment section for which car you would like to see an analysis. Once there are enough requests for a certain car, I will make a video about it. Also don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification bell so you will get notified when your requested analysis goes live. As always, thank you for watching and I hope to see you next week for a new video.